Hello everyone, this is Athorax. I've been a gamer for about 20 years, ever since I was a child, and this is actually my first ever video. And today we're going to cover my Frenzy build, both on the live and the PTR versions of the game. The first part about it is, it actually works. It's not the best, it's not a halter, it doesn't one-shot enemies, but it's quite versatile and quite interesting to play. So to get the basics out of the way, what I've done with the skill tree is more or less I've built a defensive build, a very tanky build. As you can see, Frenzy has damage reduction for each stack you have, so that really helps it to kind of give you that all damage reduction while you have Frenzy up. The next thing is Ground Stomp, which really helps you with your ultimate cooldown reduction, which I'll get into a second. We obviously have the 3 shouts here, it's kind of a bit of a classic. Of course, I've invested a lot of points into defensive passives, reduction against elites, maximum life, the usual things, Raid Leader, Booming Voice, Gutter Royale for more reductions. I've actually maxed out Warcry as much as I can, and I've gotten as many points in it as I can, and literally everything else is just defensives and offensive, the usual cheesing kind of build as much as you can. And of course Call of the Ancients to give us that extra 20 bonus % attack speed and increased damage. And last but not least, Unconstrained. Sadly, nothing works that well with Frenzy apart from Unconstrained, so that's all we have to do. When we go to the Paragon Boards, I've done my best to pump up the max life. As you can see, I have about 50k max life, but that's obviously due to Uber Uniques as well. I've used Rumble just so it combines really well with Ground Stomp, gives me another 10% multiplying damage. On top of that, you got your usuals, Wrath sockets, you have Marshall, classic, of course. I have Revenge, just so I can pump up a bit of the berserking damage, which we obviously all need and know using for Blood Rage. Actually, my figures are not that high, but I'll get to that in a minute. And of course, we have the Ire, just to give us a bit more damage reduction while berserking, and the actual damage while berserking. Could have been pumped out a bit more. You can either trade that for max life, get a few more strength points here and increase your damage, and obviously we got Decimator. So the way the build works is quite simple. You just start building up Fury and you get as much damage as you can. You pop up pretty much everything you can, and there you go, that's the effect. You pretty much get about 1.8 millions, more or less, depends, you probably could get a bit more, but yeah, you basically stack up everything, and yeah, you get your Warcry, you got your Call of the Ancients, you got your Ground Stomp. Probably I should have mentioned before I actually went on bashing the dummy like a true barbarian does, before even thinking about and explaining everything else. The aspects I've chosen for my gear are pretty much hectic. So every time I use 5 basic skills, I reduce the cooldown of any skill I have by 4 seconds. It really helps. It really gets these cooldowns off quickly. Obviously, for Frenzy, you gotta have Battle Trance, 9 ranks to Frenzy, cooldown reduction, damage reduction from close. It's great. That's pretty much a must-have. Here, obviously, both Chieftains Circle, nothing's too special. On top, this is something which is basically mostly for Frenzy and for all basic skills. You have to have that aspect of adaptability. The maximum is 80%, and that really increases your damage. You get the Earthquake, so whenever I cast a Ground Stomp, I literally, and I stand in it, I get 50% more multiplier damage, and on top of that, if you guys remember from the glyph, I get another 10% on top, so that's about 60%. Here, another aspect is the Moonrise came with this season, absolutely great. You get 160% multiplying basic skill damage, just really adds up that frenzy damage, really helps you reach this kind of figure without even having to do that much. When it comes to armor and defenses, like I said, I have a bit of a tank brain, and I always like to go fully defensive as much as I can. You could put T-bolts, and you can get away with it, and you can do even more damage. So that is a possibility, but if you really want to be safe, and for a person who usually plays hardcore such as me, I'd rather be safe. So I've tanked up the build up to 11, really. So as you can see, all of these defenses, same goes for the armor. The truth is, I could actually have aspect of might here instead of aspect of numbing wrath, but I've kind of decided to stay with it for now. The reason for it is frenzy gives you all damage reduction, and you get up to 5 stacks. 5 stacks, so that's not 40. That's about 40% damage reduction. Oh no, somebody's in trouble. Here we go. Either way, the one thing that really adds up as well is the Shaco. So you get 40%, you get another 20%, and it's the diminishing returns really start to kill it. So it's pretty much having might give you another 10% ish, but it's up to your discretion if you really want to be really defensive. But there's at that point of the game where you have so many uber uniques and you're really geared up, you don't really need any of that. Now comes the main 2 swords which you actually use for frenzy, and if you're gonna go with the sword build for frenzy, because you can actually go with a mace build as well, if you're gonna go with the sword build, you definitely need that. You need that because that actually does that multiplier bar 0.4% of your maximum fury, does way more damage than any other normal legendary sword with aspect on it. We have the Doombringer here, just so I can be tanky as hell, and the old damage isn't that great, but it really works well with the sword mastery, and it really helps. Another offensive thing which you must have for a frenzy build, at least for season 3 while season 3 lasts, is the Paingorger's gloves. These can roll up to 200% increased damage, and the way they work currently is very nice. So basically, whenever you damage an enemy with a non-basic skill for 3 seconds, you mark them, and when you actually hit them with the basic skill, you deal 160% increased multiplying damage. So you got 160 here, you got 160 here, you got 60 here if you count the glyph, and you got another, well, 80, pretty much 80 here. So that really helps. On top of that, you got your berserking, so you can easily reach about 2 million, and that's even without grandfather. Probably you could reach 3 million frenzy crits with a grandfather. The thing is, these really activate easily, and you can actually keep 100% uptime on them with a really simple trick. This works only in season 3. I'm not sure if it's going to work or it's going to be fixed for season 4. They might make some changes, but what you need to do is you need to have a 200 expertise, 200 sword expertise, and 20% of your direct damage is inflicted as bleeding damage. So all in all, whenever you have a special effect going on, the actual Paingorgers activate, and you can see here, you can see that the dot is on as long as the bleeding is on. So you can have 100% uptime without having to cast any other skill at all whatsoever on the target. Of course, if you have multiple targets, that's where Ground Stomp comes in, and he actually activates, as you can see, on all 3 or anything that's been hit. So the way it works really is you got your Paingorger's buff, you got all these multiplying aspects, and you just pop up the cooldowns, go for Ground Stomp, go for Berserking, go with the Ancients, and you literally just do as much damage as you can, and it really melts them. I'll showcase you the actual potential of it in a solo tier 100 volt, just so you can see survivability of the build and you can see a bit of action. It's the whole build is kind of inspired by the D2 Barb. If you all guys remember back from D2, those of you who have played it, it was quite classy for a lot of barbarians to level up as Frenzy and kind of go through the way. Very, very powerful single damage, the single target damage. The single target damage here isn't that great, but it's okay. It's actually quite good. So here we are. We're gonna go and bash some level 154 mobs. As you can see, I'm armor capped, resistance cap almost fully, and yeah, that should be quite easy. They literally get melted. Obviously, it's only one-man dungeon, and it's nothing that impressive, but it's still Frenzy works. It kind of starts to struggle when you play with 3 more people. Maybe it could be viable and like do a lot of damage when you have the grandfather on with 4 people, but other than that, it's pretty much alright. What happens here is whenever I use the Paingorger, whenever I have the Paingorger on, and whenever I use the ground stomp on a big pack, they all get marked, and when I hit one of them, they all get automatically hit. So even though Frenzy is mostly a single target build, you actually have a pretty good AoE. You can probably get away with less health than this, mostly. I mean, if you're on softcore, you should be fine. You can definitely maybe amp up a bit more damage and you wouldn't have any trouble. But generally speaking, I always prefer to be tanky. I always say, you gotta tank them and then you gotta spank them. So there we are, that's me. But as you can see, it's yeah, nothing gets really one-shotted that much, but they do get melted. Yeah. And yeah, the more enemies you hit with ground stomp, basically the faster your ultimate gets recharged, because every enemy that you hit reduces the cooldown of your ultimate by 2 seconds. So if that's 10 enemies, that's 20 seconds. So you got 40 seconds cooldown. You could probably have maybe about 37, I believe, is the best you can get out of it. But regardless of that, literally, if you do your rotation right, here and actually concentrate, you can have ultimates every 20 seconds, maybe even less, to be honest with you. It's really easy to reduce the cooldowns. There we go. Now we're literally gonna pump it up again. There we go. As long as I concentrate. But yes, as long as you stand with the Earthquake and you have your Berserking and Ground Stomp on and you stand with the Earthquake, you deal a good amount of damage. It's absolutely great. And the Paingorgers, like I said, they give you the AoE. It's good. It's not, let's say if you're playing with Sork or anybody else, you might struggle a bit, you know, like to keep in track with everybody, but all in all, it works. You can always go mace based. When it comes to maces, you actually want to use maces with this build when you're leveling up, since the actual mace expertise provides you 10% or 20% when you use 2 maces, increased multiplying damage, and you get up to 10% chance to gain berserking for 1.50 seconds. The thing is, as you swing to Frenzy, you swing quite a lot and quite fast, so the proc rate is not actually that bad, and if you add up some berserking duration to your gear, and you get some berserking duration from your Paragon Boards, which is obviously at Carnage, it really kind of extends, and you probably won't be able to get it early game, obviously due to Paragon Boards and all of that, but it's actually quite good when you get to late game and you have that 7-8 seconds of berserking. Really kind of helps, and if you do it right, sometimes you can have a pretty much near 100% uptime due to Hectic, reducing the cooldowns of your shouts. So yeah, as you can see, berserking is about to expire, and I'm popping up another berserking and Warcry, and obviously I have the berserking up and running again. So happy days. We don't know if Frenzy is going to be as good in Season 4. Pretty much everything in Season 4, and well, from what I've tested from the PTR, looks the same, apart from the Paingorger gloves. But with the PTR and Season 4 and all of the tempering and everything else, you can actually use normal gloves and get a lot of full damage from them, and pretty much if you masterwork them to level 12, they're going to be pretty much almost as effective as the Paingorger. Well, not that much, but they're going to be alright. Even if they decide to not to let people have special effects proc the Paingorgers, Frenzy could still probably be very viable in Season 4. Or you can definitely figure out a way in which you can use another skill and kind of proc the Paingorger's effect. Currently now in the PTR you can proc the Paingorger's effect by using Ground Stomp, but the problem with Ground Stomp is it just you cannot apply it all the time. It does have a bit of a cooldown, and in Season 4, due to the patch notes and changes, you actually get only 2%, 2 seconds, sorry, when you actually cast the skill from your cooldown. So if you use a Ground Stomp here, you use Warcry, it goes to pretty much from 7 to 3 seconds, and which is kind of nice. But over there, it's just 2 seconds, so it's not exactly the best. As you can see, not much of a challenge with this build and being tanked up as much as humanly possible. It's quite easy, but the trick is to kind of have a bit of a steady level in progression. Make sure that you all go defensive on the builds, and you should have more or less 0 troubles as a Barb. It's kind of simple. Now with the new PTR, with the new season and the PTR, this build, I'll actually show it to you now in a second, looks, let me just clear those out, maybe teleport somewhere safely. It looks a bit different. It's not too bad. It's just, I don't know, without the Paingorgers, without the damage reductions as a Barb, if you decide to level up Frenzy, you're still probably gonna be quite okay. You're probably gonna have almost 0 to no troubles, but if you play it safely and wisely. But still, the lack of damage reductions from gear might cause you some trouble and along the way. But what you can do on Season 4 is, generally as a Barb, invest as much as you can and possibly can on the Paragon Boards defensive aspects and perks, and you can do that to kind of compensate for the lack of damage reductions from chest pants and all the other pieces of gear which can potentially provide you with some damage reductions. So here we are in the PTR. In here actually we are using a maze build. We haven't had the chance to kind of find swords, so it's quite alright. Again, here even without Ubers we get 63k life. I mean it's crazy. The potential life pool you can get as a Barb with Doombringer and Shaco and Grandfather is probably gonna go through the roof. I mean, I was without a Grandfather over there, was already having 50k, and I reckon I'm gonna have about 70k life with the Grandfather and the Doombringer on. It's gonna be crazy. And here we're probably looking about 140k at the end of the season when you're pretty much fully geared. Obviously the PTR, due to working, I haven't been able to masterwork absolutely everything, so it's pretty much just the first third of the masterworking and all. But as you can see here, I actually, if I put on the bleeding, the actual Paingorgers do not activate their special effect. Oh wow, I'm without them, bear with me. Even if I put them on, as you can see, not much changes. The actual effect from them doesn't pop out. Obviously, if you use Ground Stomp, I think you can see it kind of barely hiding behind there, behind the curse. But yeah, as you can see here, the changes are, yeah, you still get your 4 seconds, but when it comes to Marshall, on the with the new patch notes on the PTR, it's only 2 seconds. So it kind of lags out a bit, the build. Yeah, it takes a while for Ground Stomp to kind of activate, and you can get some cooldown reduction from tempering on the Ground Stomp and kind of increase, and you can get some ranks. And when you add up the Shaco, the cooldown is probably going to go down significantly. Yeah, it's gonna probably go down to maybe 8 seconds or something like that. So that might be not too bad, but in reality, it's a bit slower. As you can see with the maze build, we do not rely on maximum fury. We actually rely just basically on stun damage and wall up, and yeah, it's a bit different. You don't have to have as big as a fury pool as you might have had in with the sword Barb. Sword is basically a bit generally more preferred, since you can stack fury from multiple sources, and those 0.4% when you actually multiply them by the amount of fury that you have tends to work out. If you actually have Select, it's slightly less better than a Battle Trance, but it gives you that much more survivability, and in the future, in Season 4, you actually might need it to deal with the Tormented bosses if you really want to build a Frenzy Barb. They do damage, but they don't do crazy damage, and against those Tormented level 200 Uber bosses, you are probably going to need as much survivability as you can, and maybe, you know, do a few dodges along the way to kind of, not get these debuff stacks going on, which increase damage taken from all sources from the. So yeah, it's nothing much different really. I mean, I've pretty much done my best to kind of make it as similar as the other builds. Obviously the maces, yeah, that's the main difference, but all in all, the new tempering system and everything which is new is quite interesting to see, since you get all of these kind of damages on top, and you get the berserking duration here increased, and the frenzy duration on top of that. So next season is going to be quite interesting for people who actually want to try out this build. I really think it's got some potential in it. It won't be a Dust Devil build, it won't be as great as that, but it's gonna be something. Well, here I actually have a 99 tier, which I'm gonna try out just to show you, and I actually went to the pit and reached about 154 level. I haven't really pushed it, I didn't have much time sadly, but it's doing well. The funny part about it is your life pool is bigger, but the monsters do more damage anyway, so this 60k feels like you have only 30k compared to the live season. Also, if you have a look here with the new patch, that's pretty much the best you can get. Well, you can get a bit more if you masterwork everything, and if you put on T-Boats you can get even crazier amounts and get even more damage. But the thing is, now with T-Boats you get 3 ranks of Frenzy here, which is an uptime of 100%, while with T-Boats you get your, I think it was 20% now with the new patch. So it's gonna be interesting to see, and if this gets masterworked to more, maybe goes to +4, +5, it's probably gonna beat T-Boats in the long run. But yeah, as you can see here, my damage reductions are pretty much a bit lower than what I usually have on live, but that's about it. We get to compensate with live, I guess, and I can still pretty much kind of kill him more or less easily. Oh, there we go, we got some double drop gloves, critical strike chance, and maximum life. Oh wow, that's actually not too bad. It still does quite well. I probably missed out a few things about the build. I could have maybe shown you the damage reductions on the live version of it, but pretty much they're twice as more compared to here, more or less. My force is up to about 35% for damage reduction for fortified. My close is about 50% there, and damage reduction on health is still 25% anyway, so that's kind of good. But I don't know, even with all the damage reductions and removals of things, Barb isn't that bad. Like, they removed the 10% plus damage reduction, but you probably will have troubles as you level up. You're probably gonna feel a bit squishier, but when it comes to endgame, you're pretty much okay. Like, unless you play really recklessly, what you have from the Paragon Boards defensively and from the skill tree is going to be more than enough for you to kind of live on, especially if you, again, add as much life as you can. As you can see here, I've pretty much added as much life as I can. You can notice that the HP kind of drops a bit faster, but we are without Uber Uniques after all, and with a bit less damage reduction. I'm not too bothered by it. It's doable. And yeah, generally speaking, actually, Frenzy is probably quite a good defensive build, since you get those 40% damage reduction, damage reduction, and if you obviously have Aspect of Might, which is, there we are, Aspect of Might, you get another 20%, and obviously if you add up the Shaco, it's pretty much the same business as usual. So yeah, and here you can see the Paingorgers kind of doing their job. Dealing with AoE packs bit by bit. So yeah, I'm actually gonna, guys, show you the pit in a second just to have a look, but it's pretty much the same as this tier. I've pretty much reached to the same stage, more or less. All in all, I would say sword-based Frenzy is pretty much the stronger one, and for late game. So if you stick to that, you'll pretty much get the most out of it. But yeah, that's pretty much the build overall. Like I said, it relies on classics, Blood Rage, Decimator, Vulnerable, yeah, all of that. So here we are, just a quick pit showcase. hope you guys will have a blast in Season 4. I hope you enjoyed the game as much as I do. I'll admit, I can't wait to see Season 4 and pretty much have a look of everything and try out everything. But if you're actually interested in this build, I'll leave links in the description. If you have any questions, I probably missed out a ton of it, so feel free to ask, feel free to like this video, and I hope I'll see you again soon, and I hope I see you on Hardcore Season 4. Have a nice one, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.